Welcome to Fathers of the Faith for Covenant Kids, where we look back on the church fathers who raised the ramparts which defend our faith to present day. On this episode, we are going to start a little series talking about the books of the Bible and the different types of literature that we find in the Bible. So, let's take a closer look. My name is Grant, and join with me are my three wonderful little saplings. The oldest is Lila.
Hello, everybody.
And the middleest is Edward.
Hello, all ye saplings that are not me and my family.
And our littlest is Nora.
Hi, Dewey, hello.
Okay, hi Nora, how you doing?
Wait, how Dewey?
How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
How does it feel to be back in the saddle?
Wait.
Like on a horse.
Nora.
People say that when they do something for a long time and then they take a break, and then when they come back to it, they say, I'm getting back in the saddle. You know, like a cowboy's always riding around the great frontier.
Okay, yes, we get it.
And then he takes a break, you know, hangs out in the saloon, preaching the gospel, of course. And then, when he needs to go back out and do his cowboy things, he's back in the saddle. So how does it feel to be back in the saddle?
Good. And he's back in the saddle saying, how do we? Hello. According to Nora, that is.
What's up, Nora?
Good. Like, we got a bunch of snow yesterday. Like, it was snow
we
for
did.
11 hours.
Guys, we had an awesome snowstorm yesterday, and it's sticking around today. It's kind of chilly today.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long the snow will stick around, but Eddie and I had a little bit of a snowball fight last night.
Yeah.
Same with Nora and I were like, hey, look. She hit me. I'm like, you're gonna pay for that. And I grabbed a big old cobbler and I threw it.
Big old snowball you threw at her?
Mm-hmm.
We love snow at the Van Brimmer household, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so let's get into our topic for the next couple of weeks. I think we'll just do 2 episodes on this, but I thought it might be very beneficial for us to talk about the books of the Bible and the different literature, or another word is the different genres of the books of the Bible. So the Van Brimmer kids have been reading through 1st and 2nd Samuel, and then we read through Nehemiah, and then now we're reading through the book of James for our Bible reading every morning, and there's some different types of literature there.
But you know what genre sounds like?
What?
Like a Pastor John or something.
Pastor genre.
Miss Pastor Genre.
All right, guys. So let's talk about these different types of genre. Genre is just a fancy word for style or type. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there are different genres of music. There's classical with all the like orchestra, strings, and then there's like heavy metal hardcore music. What does heavy metal hardcore music sound like, Nora?
Like,
and then you have stuff like electronic pop, and that would be like
Owl City and Alabama, which is my favorite.
Awesome.
And
okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about different styles or genres. So here are the different ones, and then we'll talk about types of books that fall in to each genre.
Okay.
So the first one that we find in the Bible is law. And this is the first 5 books of the Bible. Lila, what are the first 5 books of the Bible?
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
Yep, so we call that the law. Then, in the Old Testament, we have historical books, and these books pretty much follow in chronological order. Do you guys know what chronological order means?
Yeah, I do.
What, Lila?
It means, like, time.
Yeah. So, like, Lila on Monday did this, and then Lila on Tuesday did that, and then it follows in time, right?
Yeah, like the Chronicles of Narnia.
Right, yeah. It all went in a sequence from beginning, middle, end, right?
Yeah.
And so the Old Testament historical books start with Joshua. You guys have read Joshua before.
Mm-hmm. Joshua.
And then right after the stories that you find in Joshua, then there's the book of Judges. And it goes through all of the judges. And then Ruth.
She lived in the Judges time.
Yep. That's right, Lila. She lived during the time of Judges. We find 1st and 2nd Samuel. And in those books, it tells the story of Israel getting their first king, Saul, and then their second king, King David. And then after that, we have 1st and 2nd Kings. And then we have what, Lila?
1st and 2nd Chronicles.
Yep, and 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles show all the different kings of Israel, and then when the kingdom split of Israel and Judah, and it shows different aspects of each one. Those are sort of like rails on a train track. They sort of run side by side along history. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, and those are still historical books. Now, there's one historical book in the New Testament. Can you guys tell me which book in the New Testament tells us a lot about just events that happen in order? It's Acts. The book of Acts. From start, middle, finish. That's the New Testament historical book. Okay. Next genre. Wisdom and poetry. So in the Old Testament, the wisdom and poetry books are what? Can you guys tell me one of the books that would be wisdom or a poetry book?
I know.
Yeah, Lila, what is that?
Song.
Yeah, the Psalms. So the other wisdom and poetry books in the Old Testament are Job, Proverbs. Proverbs is a wisdom book. And then Ecclesiastes is another book full of wisdom. And then Song of Songs, or maybe you know it as Song of Solomon. That's a very poetic book, isn't it? And of course, like Lila said, the book of Psalms, that's full of poetry.
Yeah.
So the rest of the Old Testament is what, guys? We got major and minor what?
Prophets.
And so these are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum,
Habakkuk,
Zephaniah,
Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah.
Malachi.
Not now.
Lila's getting pretty good at memorizing her Old Testament books.
Now.
All right, so these are the different genres of books in the Old Testament. Next episode, we'll talk about the genres in the New Testament. How does that sound?
Okay.
Awesome. So, the books of law, of course, those are all God's rules and His rules for us on how to live as His redeemed people, right?
Right.
And then the history books, this is what we also would call narrative. If you say something is a narrative, it's a book that just tells you how things happened, right? Lila did this, and then Eddie did a flip off of that, and then Nora rolled on the floor laughing, right? I told a narrative of what happened when the kids were playing in the room, right?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, we're going to cut it right there, and we'll come back next episode and talk about the genres in the New Testament. And we thank you so much for listening. We hope that learning about the Bible has strengthened your faith. Tune in again next week for another episode of Fathers of the Faith for Covenant Kids.
See you next time!